It was an utterly normal day for me. Well, actually, I'd gotten a parking ticket and a jury summons, so it was a pretty shitty day for me. However, neither of those would seem of any consequence when I got home, at the end of it, to find my computer infected. But maybe I'm going a little too fast. Let me take a step back, and then we'll start from when I returned from work that day. As always, the first thing I did was I go through the mail. Feel free to imagine my aggravation at the summons here. It didn't help either that everything else was junk mail and bills. Whatever. Just one of life's many joys. Preferring to relax a little bit before dealing with them, I went straight to my computer to do, nothing at all. Just some browsing, check my email, etc. Doing nothing can be good for the soul. I noticed my computer running much slower than usual, though. Certainly slower than it was yesterday. My first reaction was to look at my taskbar to see if my antivirus was updating maybe, or possibly Windows was downloading some new features or something. You know, the usual culprits. But alas, no such luck. I tried to put up with the slow speeds for a while, but I just wanted to get a level head before I had to deal with the troubleshooting for this thing. Yet another nuisance, on this day that seemed so ripe for them. Eventually my patience reached its limit, though, my attempts to relax at the terminal having crashed and burned. I went to address the problem now, determined to find a way to wind down even if it killed me. Upon reopening my computer, a red flag raised. My hard drive had no free space left on it. To put things in perspective, I have a 1 terabyte internal hard drive, with basically nothing on it. I got this computer from a friend of mine, much techier than I am, and while I don't know nearly as much about computers as she does, I know that a terabyte is a lot of space, and that my entire computer didn't even use 10% of it yesterday. Clearly something was going on, and I suspected some kind of virus or malware. I've heard that there are some out there that'll just create garbage data on your system, flooding it with pointless files just to fill it up and make it run slow. I've always wondered what possible benefit there could be to this, but my friend told me there are some scammers who will infect you with one of these viruses, then try to charge you a fee to clean and speed up your PC. Fortunately, I haven't received any such contact, yet. Still, my suspicions seem grounded. I gave up and performed a scan with my antivirus program. A full scan. Sure, one might think that just a quick scan would be faster, but it didn't turn up anything, and then I was forced to do a full scan afterwards. It would just wind up taking longer than if I wanted to do the full scan from the start. Kind of a roundabout logic, but I just wanted to get this resolved so I could finally relax at my computer. I went to go watch some TV for a while. Nothing good on. I really just want to go to browsing. A couple hours later, I heard the little scan complete chime from my speakers. I went to go examine the results. No viruses, no malware. I was baffled. However, there was one thing of note on the screen. One file could not be scanned due to corrupted data files. The window had 3 options: list, report, dismiss. I clicked list to see the details of the files, and it showed a file made up of a bunch of square box characters. Square, 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 Anima was the file name. This was no file I put here, and I'm sure it wasn't there before. I'd never installed any kind of language extensions on my computer, so the file name was written in characters from some other language. Maybe Japanese or Arabic or something. I've also never heard of this .anima file type, but that could wait. The file location was listed in some secluded subfolder of System32. That's where viruses like to hide out, right? I made my way to the folder and examined the file. As expected, it read as some unknown file type. My computer didn't know what program would open it. Not that I had any plans of doing so. Besides, what surprised me more was the size of the file. Or rather, the lack of one. There's no file size. That is, it was just a garbled mess of text, if you could even call it that. It looked like some sort of glitch, but maybe there were some kind of weird special characters. I'd seen them make signature art, using what looked like garbled messes of text before. One of the first things I learned about computers was that a computer does what you tell it to, not what you want it to. That is, everything happens for a reason. Somebody had to program this behavior to make it display like this. I didn't know what the file was, but I knew I didn't need it spamming up my system, as I'm sure it was doing. So of course, having found the little bugger, I immediately deleted it. All of the problems went away. I was able to browse in peace once again. The traffic ticket was overturned, and I managed to weasel my way out of jury duty. That's what I'd like to say. Instead, a little Windows message popped up, telling me that the file could not be deleted. Access was denied. There was no question at this point. Definitely some kind of virus. I tried, and I tried, but nothing I did was able to get rid of this bugger. After 4 attempts, a second window appeared over the usual cannot delete message. This one was formatted like a Windows message, except that there was no title in the top of the bar of the window. There was only one word of text: stop. This was accompanied by 2 choices: yes or no. I considered my options, but knowing that this was a virus, and it wasn't willingly going to allow me to delete it, I chose yes. Thankfully, the window terminated as it should have, and I was back to the Explorer window. I decided to do some research, as I probably should have done, before messing with this type of file at all in retrospect. Putting up with the incredibly slow browsing speed, I ran a research for the file name by copying the characters. When that turned up with nothing, I tried just searching for the .anima file type, which I'd never heard of. Maybe this was some brand new kind of virus. Maybe the antivirus software hadn't found a way to recognize it yet, and no one online had encountered it this far. Maybe I was the very first victim. I was outraged. This is just fucking perfect, I said to myself, spewing all sorts of vulgarities, the likes of which would have resulted in no less than a dozen slaps from even the saltiest of nuns. I didn't want to deal with this right now. I didn't want to deal with it ever, but especially I didn't want to deal with it right now. I left the computer on for a while after that, just to find some other way to wind down. I wasn't that successful. The next day, I was still pretty annoyed, but I was at least more level-headed than I was the day prior. And this was my weekend, so I would have plenty of time to figure it out. I called up the friend of mine who I'd gotten the computer from, and she attested that she had no knowledge of any such file type on it, nor how it could have gotten there. But she did offer to help me troubleshoot it, thankfully. After I told her all that I had done this far, she seemed pretty convinced of my theory, that it was some brand new kind of virus without any currently known method of being dealt with. Unfortunately, she wasn't nearly skilled enough to try picking apart an unknown virus, fresh off the market, so her help ended there. Great. With nothing left to do, I decided to experiment with the file. It took a full day to back up my important files onto a separate drive, hopefully without carrying the virus over with them. And the following day, I was able to start dealing with the thing. The file wasn't a standalone executable, or it would have run by itself when I double-clicked it. Having no knowledge of what program the file was intending to run with, I started cycling through all the programs on my computer, trying to find something that would work. First up was Notepad, as I found a lot of unknown files can be read in text format. This one turned up as a bunch of missing character box symbols again, so it could be read as a text file, but it was all in another language. I guess that's a start. For lack of anything else to try, I continued through the list of programs. Next up was Windows Photo Viewer. I didn't expect anything to happen, since if the file had been opened in Notepad, that meant it would have been some kind of text-based file, right? Well, somehow, Photo Viewer was able to read the whole thing, and it came up with an image of a nice little suburban house somewhere. If it weren't for the subtle cultural hints, like the buildings in the background and the style of the mailbox, I would have assumed it would be an American suburb. Unfortunately, there wasn't any kind of text around the image, so I couldn't determine the country of origin. I tried to move the window to the side for later, but accidentally closed it instead. So I tried to open the program again with Photo Viewer, and it worked, but this time I got a different image. This one of the inside of a car driving on a brick road, from the driver's perspective. How's this even possible? Even assuming the file could have been read by both Notepad and Photo Viewer, it's just one file. Opening it up should have come with the same result each time. If this was a virus, it seemed to mess with the functions of my machine something fierce. I opened the file once again in Photo Viewer, and this time I got a string of big, bold white symbols on a black background. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure they were Russian characters. Is that where this file's from? Russia? And the images too. Unfortunately, it was an image, so I couldn't copy the text and paste it into a search engine. I was curious, though. I decided to take a screenshot of the text so that I could look at it later. One print screen and MS Paint opened later, I tried to paste what I had copied, but again, the image wasn't the same. This time it was of a young woman, dressed in formal attire, looking at the camera expectantly. It was the craziest thing. Every time this file appeared on the screen, a new image. From there, I used the undo and redo keyboard commands to quickly erase and repaste the image over and over and over again. Every time, it was something different. A grocery store, a theater, someone's living room, a man looking at a mirror, a pair of grave sites. After that, the next time I refreshed the image, I got this. Get out. This made me jump a little bit. Was this supposed to be addressed to me? Is this what the Russian text before translated to? Someone had to preload all of these images to a slideshow and program them into this file. Maybe there were images of this message in all sorts of languages, and these were just the two that happened to encounter first. Still, something about the big, bold white text message got to me, and I shut down Paint. Still, I was curious now. I wanted to know what other programs might be able to open this file. I tried Windows Media Player next, curious of how it might interpret the file. Apparently, it read it as audio. But curiously, the little seek bar didn't move. As the file played, the time count went up, but the bar stayed at the far left, like it might if it were playing some kind of online live stream. The audio was a very clear recording of several people talking in Russian. Hearing it, I was more certain of the language it came from. It was also a hint that I heard the dishes clanking and liquid being slurped as the word borscht came up from time to time. I could only assume this was a recording of some family dinner or something. Why it was in the file, I have no idea. The audio was pretty mundane. After 5 minutes or so of nothing particularly interesting happening, I closed out, and this time I tried opening it in VLC Media Player. This time it was read as a video. I don't know why it would be any different between the two players, but the same thing happened in VLC, where the time count went up, but the bar never seemed to move. Due to my computer's infection, the video ran extremely choppily, but what I could make out seemed to be a first-person view of someone sitting in an office, working on an assortment of paperwork. At times, I saw the viewer's reflection in his computer monitor, and it looked to be just the same man, who was looking at himself in the mirror in that image that appeared before. Curious, just to see what happened, I skipped ahead with the seek bar, trying to find the other parts of the video, but as soon as I tried to move it from its position, glued to the left side of the window, VLC crashed and I was forced to shut it down. When I did, another Windows message had appeared beneath the window. Again, no title in the top bar, and only one line of text. Stay out. Again, the options were yes and no. Just to see what would happen, this time I clicked no. That may have been a mistake. The window didn't close, but out of nowhere, my computer started whirring, as if it were under incredible strain, and the window practically locked up. I tried moving my mouse, but I was unable to move it out of the Stay Out window, which still had both options selectable. Thinking that maybe the computer was having trouble processing the command, I once again clicked no. This time the reaction was even stronger. Countless message windows began popping up all over the current one, all of them identical. Stay out, stay out, stay out, stay out. One after another, they rapidly began popping up all over the last, slowing my computer to a literal snail's pace. I tried moving my mouse, and it very, very slowly crawled its way out from the no command. Hoping to just end this calamity at this point, I got it to meander over to the yes command, and finally clicked it. Just like that, the window stopped appearing. The hard drive stopped whirring, and everything seemed to go back to normal. Or, at least, it went back to the way it was before I clicked no. The file was still there, and it still had to be taken care of. I tried once again to delete this file. This time a message popped up reading, "Do not." The only clickable option being OK. Odd, this message was definitely different from the one I got last time when I tried to delete it. Trying to X out of the message window did nothing, so I reluctantly hit OK, and it closed. I tried copying the file to a drive, moving it off of the computer, but then I received a Windows error message telling me that the file cannot be moved because it was being accessed by another program. The same message came up when I tried just moving it to the desktop for easier access. I was curious to see whether this was true or not, and actually, I hadn't taken a look at my processes to see if maybe there was something going on there that was making my system drag so much. I opened up the Task Manager and switched over to the Processes tab. And sure enough, at the top of the list was one called Anima. It was taking up almost the full 100% of my computer's processing power. Did that mean that this file was not only occupying my whole hard drive, but most of my RAM as well? How big was this thing? Without another thought, I chose to end the process. This resulted in another Windows message. No title. This one read, "Please, no." These titleless messages weren't written by any Pulitzer Prize winner. That's for sure. The clickable options were no and no again. Unable to X out. I clicked one of the two no's, and the window closed. Underneath it, there was a typical Windows message, asking me if I was sure I wanted to force end the process. Glad that the virus didn't interfere with this function, I clicked end process, and my hard drive whirred for a moment. And then just like that, the process vanished. My CPU usage went back down to its normal levels, and I was finally able to use my machine freely again. However, the file was still there, in the folder. I could have just deleted it then and there, but I wanted to check, once again, to be sure that no one else had encountered this little bugger yet. So, now that I was running at almost full speed, I did another search for Anima file type. Still no results. On a final hunch based on the name of the process I saw running, I tried to just search Anima. All that returned was that anima was a Latin word that functionally translates into English as soul. When I read that, it all hit me like a ton of bricks. That file. It couldn't have possibly been, could it? Was that file? It couldn't have possibly been, could it? Was that .anima file a human soul? It had to be some kind of prank, played by someone trying to horrify people for a cheap laugh. All this had to be programmed, a great big delusion messing with somebody's system functionality, and creating all these pop-up messages, images, and files, just to trick me into thinking that there could really be a person in digital format. Of course, the idea was preposterous. Even if there was such a thing as a haunted computer, or some military experiment to extract a human soul into a digital format, there's no reason. No way it would wind up on my computer. How could that even come about? Granted, I have no better explanation of how such a virus could find its way into my system. The logical side of me knows better than to believe in some prankster's games. But still, that possibility, however small it may be, still haunts me. What if it really had been a person in there? Their life, their memories, their thoughts and feelings. If so, what had I just done by ending the process and terminating it from my system? It wasn't something I wanted to think about. I determined to just delete the file, so I'd never have to think about it again. But before I did that, I had to know. Curiosity got the better of me, and I tried running the file again, and all the programs that I had tried previously. Notepad now read it as an empty document. No matter what program I used, I read it as only an empty black screen, with faint static for audio. There was nothing left. Nothing.